Okay, let's start working at the materials, and we start with the pavement and the table. So let's select the pavement mesh, then we go in the material editor and we can create a material. Let's call it pavement. We go to assign it and we go to choose a V-Ray material because we are using V-Ray for the rendering. This material will be simple and we'll use a texture coming from CG texture site. You can download it freely or making a membership and download it, but you can use it because we have the possibility to use it in our tutorial. Let's go to change the color of the pavement. Let's go for 90, 117 and 130. Okay. I like to have a little bit of reflectivity, so maybe something like 42 to have just a little bit of reflection over. We go for a reflection to have just a little bit of reflectivity on the edge, and maybe we can use a little bit less reflectivity. Okay, now we need a texture. So about the texture, we go for a bitmap. And we go in the folder where we have the project. And we use this one, Floors Marble. Open. And we go to have no blurring. Let's see in the viewport. You see that it needs to have tiling because it is not so much. Okay, so we can set the tiling to 5 and 5, and you see that we are starting to see the tiling in the right way. And then I like to use a little bit the color and a little bit the texture, and to do something like that we have to go inside the maps and say that we use this one less. But I like to see how it is coming, so let's select this part and we can render a really fast preview. You see that we have the texture now on the ground. Okay, nice. Let's get to use the texture just at 35%, so we'll use the color with a little bit of the texture, and you see that it's going in a different way, but it is really nice. Okay, now I like to take care about the reflectivity. Actually, we have no reflection. I like, we have just a little bit of reflection, I mean. And let's go to have also some glossiness. So let's go for 0.85. And we go to have a different glossiness for the highlight. So 0.7. You see that it is really nice. Let's see to check how it is looking there, where we have a lot of lighting over the reflectivity, and you see that it's not so burn, so it is coming in the right way. Now I like to use partially the texture because it will give us a more realistic thing. So let's copy this one in the reflection glossiness, and we'll use it just a little bit. Let's say 35. We do the same for the glossiness, and we do the same for the reflectivity. So we are using the map to take care about the reflectivity and to know how the glossiness is working on the lighting and on the specularity and reflectivity. And you see that now we are starting to have a little bit of better looking reflection. Let's see also on this part. And then we are near to finalize this material, but before I like to add a little bit of bumping. So let's use the same map as a copy. We go to have blurring 0.25, and we go to have maybe just 15, Again, let's make a little preview for this part. We should see a little bit of blurring, of bumping. You see that there it is starting to be visible. Also there. Okay, and let's check on the other side too. And if it is nice, we can move to create. Okay, we have a little bit of bumping. Okay, nice. So now I like to work at the wood for our table. You have to take care and pay attention that the table has two parts. One part is metal, this one, and the other part is wood. And to do this, we have a material with a multi sub-objects. So we have the ID1 for the wood and the ID2 for the metal. So let's call it table. It is a standard and it is a multi sub-object. Keep all map, set number 2 because we are using just 2 material. We can assign it and then we can play with the materials. So okay, so the first material will be wood and the second one will be a V-Ray material, and that's the metal. The first one is a V-Ray material too, so we can take care about the first one. I like to have a dark material, so maybe we can go just with a 8, 8, 8, so a really dark color, maybe also a little bit less. Okay, and we'll have the reflectivity with the Fresnel, and we can go to have a little bit more reflectivity, and we go to have a really bright reflectivity. So let's go for white. We can have a little bit of reflection glossiness, and maybe the glossiness for the specularity will be a little bit higher. Now if we go to render, just maybe let's say this part for a preview, just to see how it is going with this material. You see that we have a little bit of reflectivity there, and then we have the dark coloring, and there we have a little bit of reflectivity. So the material is really nice to simulate a dark wood. So to make it similar to a wood material, we have to use a texture for the reflectivity. So we can put there a bitmap, and the bitmap will be the wood fine. Let's go to have the no blurring. You see the map inside the viewport. We can manage the actual tiling, it is okay. But the map has a little bit of coloring, so we go to have a color correction. Keep all map, and with the color correction we go to change the color of the map. So we go to have no coloring, just black and white. Back there to see how it is looking now, the wood material. We should start see some differences there. You see that now we see the vein of the wood in the reflectivity, and that's really nice. But I like to change something more. I like to use the same map we are using for the reflectivity, but with a little bit less usage. So let's go for 65, maybe 70. And I like to use the same map for the glossiness, to control the glossiness of the material. And let's go to have a really low value there, maybe something like 15, to change a little bit the value we are using for the material on the top. The map can stay with the parameter we have, so that's good to go in this way. And maybe we can use a little bit of bumping too to make it more realistic, nothing so much. So let's copy this one and let's go to maybe 4 just to start, or maybe 3. And inside the map we have to change a value, and that's the blurring. Let's go for 0.25. Let's go to render again this area, just a brief test. Okay, you see that we have a little bit of bumping and we have the specularity and all the stuff we need. So let's see also on this part of the table, but it should work in the right way. You see that we have really nice reflectivity there and also on the side. Okay. That's the wood. We can give the same material to this part of the table, and to do this we have just to take care about copy this one in an empty slot as an instance, because we use the same material, and we can assign the wood to this one. Let's see if the map is working fine, and that's right. Okay, nice. Now we have to work at the metal part that is partially visible there, but we use the same metal for the table legs. So the metal, we use a black color, freshen reflection to make a chromic, a really glossy chromic, and we go to have a bright reflectivity, I mean maybe 255. We'll have a really high reflective material. Let's go for 12. So you see this really chromic. And then we go for 0.8 for the glossiness. So you see we have blurred reflection, and just a little bit more for the highlight glossiness. Let's go for 16 for the subdivision to have less grain. And then we have to work a little bit on the BRDF. Let's go for word, that is better for the metals. And let's go to have a little bit of anisotropy. Maybe we can go back there and say that we have maybe 0.9 for the specular highlight, and maybe just a little bit more for the highlight glossiness. Now we have to do the same thing we done before. We have to copy the material there as an instance. Then we have to select the legs there. Okay, and we can assign it. Nice. Save, and in the renderer let's make a test just for this area to see if the metal is going in the right way. And we see also the other part of the wood we are using for the table, so the table will be ready to be used. Nice. Okay, it is looking nice. Maybe we can go to have just a little bit more reflectivity. Let's go for 14 for the IRR, and save. So we have the table ready. We can move forward to work at the other materials. So maybe the first material we can work on is the red plastic for this one. So let's go there and let's call this one red plastic. We can assign it. So this one will be a simple material. I'm not taking care about some complex stuff. I'm just trying to achieve a nice result. So let's go for a V-Ray material also in this case. And we can go for a color like, let's try 55 for the red, 0 for the green and 0 for the blue, so a dark red. Now let's go with the Fresnel reflection, and we can go to have a really nice reflectivity, so let's use maybe 245. Okay, you see that we have the reflection there. In the renderer we can make just a fast preview for this area to see how it is moving. You see that at this fast render we are starting to have a nice red coloring, but now we have really precise reflectivity, and I prefer to have something different. So let's wait for the last part, because later will be nice to see how the specularity will touch this part. So let's go to have a little bit more reflectivity, so maybe 1/8 can be enough. And then we go to have just a little bit of glossiness, so the blurred reflection there, and we can see how it is going, just rendering a little part. We should have a little bit more reflection, but you see we have a little bit of blurriness. And then we go to have more depth for the reflectivity, to have more precise and high quality reflection. And then we go to take care about the highlight glossiness way. I like to see a brighter area for the glossiness, so we see something there on this part, and you see that we are starting to have the bright area there. You see also there, and then we can see something on this part of the plastic. And that's nice. Okay, perfect. So now I like to work at this plastic stuff under the glasses. So let's select this one, and let's say blue plastic. Okay, this material will be similar to the previous one, so it is simple to be used, but it will have some differences. So first of all, we have to use a V-Ray material again, and we have to use a color. I like to go for something like, let's go for 47, 105, 3, and 214. So you see it is a bluish color. We need the Fresnel reflection. We can stay with a 1/6. We can maintain the max depth to 5 because it is not so complex and reflective material. We can have a little bit of reflectivity, and we can go for maybe 95, 95, 95 to have this gray. So you see we have a little bit of reflection there, but we go to have an high glossy area, and the high glossiness there will be higher. So let's go for 0.68. So you see we have this part. Let's go in the render, and let's make a preview. It should work in a nice way. You see the color, nice. I like to have, because when we re-render this one bigger, let's go for having just this object visible. Let's go there, and let's say to render this part. Okay, you see that it's going nice, but I like to have a little bit of bumping over. So we can go to bitmap, and we can put a bump map there, and we can go for a cellular, and this one can have a really little scale. Let's go for 0.025, and everything else can be left as the default value. Let's see how it is going. you see that we have it. It is too much, obviously, so we can lower the bump value there and use, for example, 10. Let's try to have a more precise rendering, so let's take care about the anti-alias and we can work with the lengths. Let's go for 2.5 for the sides to have less aliasing, and let's go for 2.10. So now we have a more clear render, and we have a little bit of bumping over the plastic, and that's nice. Obviously we have still a little bit of grain, and that's due to the other V-Ray parameters in rendering. So let's remove and let's go back to the camera. Okay, let's move to the other materials.